Good morning, everyone, and welcome to day two of Comsers. I hope you are having a great time. My name is Ståle Hansen, and I'm the producer of this session. As always, please ask your questions in the Q&A. We will go through them in the end. If you don't have time for everything, we will repost them in the breakout session and continue the discussion there. This session is called Automate and Leverage Teams Provisioning with Power Virtual Agent and Microsoft Graph, and will be presented by MVP Luise Freese. And take it away, Luise.
Okay, thank you so much. We already talked about pronouncing our name. So my name is Luise Freese. I would love to talk with you about Teams provisioning. I found a nice way to do this with Power Platform. First of all, I would love to thank our sponsors. So please do visit their booth virtually. Please go on their websites. Without them, this wouldn't be possible. Okay, so I would like to introduce myself. So my name again is Luise Freese. I'm located in Germany. As you can see, I can write nice functional JSON code. My favorite number is 42 for so many reasons. I am an MVP for Office Apps and Services. I usually say, hi, I'm not the most technical person in the world, but I learned, I'm working on it. My profession is Microsoft 365 consultant. And as I work as a business consultant, I focus on strategy, the art of teamwork, and simplifying business processes. Let's get that done as well. Okay, thank you, Visual Studio Code. So you may find my website at m365princess.com because I am a princess. And please follow me on Twitter at Luise Freese, which happens to be my name. Today's session topic is automate and leverage the Teams provisioning with Power Virtual Agents and Microsoft Graph. And I would love to welcome you again to Comsverse 2020. Okay, so once you know who I am, what's happening in this world? So work from home is the new normal. I don't know how you feel about that, but this could be me at some days at least. And this is exactly my customers. And all my customers are like, oh, can I have a team, please? Because teams and working in teams is the new normal as well. But there is a problem with that because I see two extremes in my work as consultant. The one extreme is over-restricted IT, so everything is blocked, sanctioned, or controlled. And the other extreme is teams over-adoption, which means too many teams, which should be just channels, too many channels, which should just be chat, and so on. So my goal is I want to balance that. And I want to balance that with the chatbot. So I would like to say, hey, okay, so a user asks the chatbot for a new team, in Teams, of course. And the IT cares about that only educated users become Teams owners because, you know, there happens a lot in the team. And then we get an approval by a manager and the new team gets created. So this is what I want to be the end result. So goals of this solution are I want a balance between over-restricting and over-adoption. I want a lean process to provision teams. Plus, I want digitally literate users. So just instead of blocking everything and saying, hey, this is the dumbest assumable user, I just want to increase digital literacy across an organization. So let's think about that. Who should be the owner of a team? I think someone who attended a training and proved their knowledge. Would you agree with that? I think so. So my solution overview. A user puts input into a chatbot experience, which means, hi, I want to have a new team. And then we check if this user is in a security group that are created beforehand called educated users. So I have two groups in my ID, one for uneducated users who did not attend training, and one for educated users, the ones who did attend training. So I want to have a process in which this group membership is just checked. If the user is in my group of educated users, we got a manager's approval, the manager approves, and after that, a flow picks up this information and provisions the team. If manager does not approve, we send notifications and end the process, because if there is no business need for a new team, we shouldn't provision that in IT. If our user is not in the security group of educated users, I want to provide a training and a test. And if the user trains and passes the test, then we go back to manager's approval, and depending on the outcome, we provision the team or we send just notifications if there is no business need for a new team. If the user does not pass the test, so if after training, user still does not know what is the responsibility of a team's owner, or what happens if we click this magic button, create a new team, then we need to send notifications and end this process as well. Okay, so this is the solution. Perhaps you might know I love Lego, so let's build this brick by brick. So first, the basics. I need 2 security groups in Azure AD, one for educated users and one for uneducated users. That's quite easy. Then we need events for training. Nowadays, perhaps they are videos or online live sessions. Could be in-person event after COVID as well. But we need to have events in our Outlook calendar. After that, I need a form for training session invitations. So I need to let the user choose which training session he or she wants to attend. I need to have a flow that sends those session invitations to our user. I need a form to test my user after they attended training. I need a flow to log my tests. And I need a SharePoint list to calculate the results of those tests. And then I need another SharePoint list to log those requests. Okay, so these are the basics. It's quite a long list, but I promise it's not that hard. After we have those basics, so our prerequisites, we can actually create a bot in Power Virtual Agents. And after we did that, we need to create a flow that is called from the Power Virtual Agent to gather the information and pick that up. And after that, we need to create a second flow to provision our team. And then we just need to publish our bot and add the bot as an app to Teams. Okay, so I would like to show you something. When I first came up with this idea of, I just want to test the user, and most probably I would just use Microsoft Forms for that. And in Forms, you can do surveys. Surveys means any answer is right because it's the user's input. And you can do quizzes as well. And a quiz means there is only one, or there are correct answers. And a Forms quiz also calculates the result of this test for you. But it turns out that Power Automate is not able to use that. So there is no way to get this information. Therefore, I needed to come up with another solution. And I decided just to use a SharePoint list and just to compare the given answer with the correct answer, just to know what is the result of this test. And I needed just 3 columns for that. So is the answer correct? What is the total score and what is the result? So is it educated or not educated? So to create an actionable bot, we first need to do the basics. So we go to powerva.microsoft.com. We need to set up a new topic and enter some trigger phrases, and then we need to outline what the bot should do in our authoring canvas. So to make things very, very easy for you, I just do that right now. So it's powerva.microsoft.com. Of course, I'm already logged in. here we go. So I go to topics. My session starts right now. This is good. And you see, I already created a topic, which is called Teams Request. And in this topic, Teams Request, you can see I have some trigger phrases like I need to be the owner of a new team, or how can I get a team, or I want to be the owner of a team, I want a team, I want a new team. So whatever. You can really use natural language, just assume how your users would phrase that. So it's no need to speak kind of a computer language for that. So we need to outline what our bot should do to just the conversation. And pro tip is perhaps just imagine that first, and after that, write that down in this authoring canvas. So I first have these trigger phrases, and then there needs to be a message like, hey, I'm the bot, I can help you with this or with that. Is this what you want? And then we get a user's input. And then we ask the user several questions like, hey, who should be the owner, or the name of the team and the description, and should it be private or public? So we ask all the questions that we need to know to actually provision a team. And after that, we say, hey, there needs to be an action. And this action is a flow that needs to pick up all this information. And if I just open that, you can see this flow almost in action. So I will just open it for you. And it says, so this is the Power Virtual Agent, and it picks up a lot of information here, everything we asked in the authoring canvas, and then it just initializes variables for the team name and the owner and a description, privacy level, and so on. And once we have that, we check the group membership. So I just check if the owner of my team is in my group of educated users. And if yes, then we just create an item in our Teams request log list in SharePoint and say, hey, this is a new request, no training needed. No training needed because of what? Because the desired owner is already trained. So somehow he got into this group of educated users, and therefore no training required. And we can just say, hey, from an IT perspective, this user should be an owner of a team. If user is not in the group of educated users, we just send him a notification. In my case, I wanted to do this with a fancy adaptive card. I will show a little bit later how this works. And just say, hey, thank you for your request, but with great power comes great responsibility, and we just want to ensure that you have this power. Therefore, we want you to have some training and a test. And then I add some delay to let the users do this test. For demo purposes, I did this here for 2 minutes. In real life, I would allow 5 to 10 days or business days, something like that. So it depends on your organization. After that, we get the items of our of the answers of the quiz. So this is another flow which puts the answers in the quiz and compares them. I already showed that to you with my calculated columns. And what we then do is, depending on the result, so if the result says, hey, this user is educated, depending on how many points he or she earned in this test, we just add the user now to the group of educated users and remove the user from the group of uneducated users, so that the next time he or she wants to have a new team, doesn't need to take the test anymore. And then we send again a fancy notification in Teams, and we log this request in Teams and say, hey, now the status is new after training. If user does not pass the test, I would just say, hey, send a message in Teams and say, hey, we're sorry to tell you, but you can't be the owner of a team, and then we need to find another solution for you. So if after training this still does not work, we really need to find something else. Okay, so back to presentation. So we outlined we created a flow, and we call this flow from Power Virtual Agents. And here's a quick overview what we do. So we initialize all the variables. We get the basic info, team name, description, privacy. We got some people, owner is required. I said perhaps it's just good to add the first member so everyone can just start working. Nothing is more evil like an empty team. And it's really best practice to ask the owner, hey, which channels would you like to use? So technically, yes, an owner is able to create the channel by himself or herself. But if we already have one channel, which is not the general channel, it eases a collaboration. So really best practice, because otherwise the general channel will turn into a trash bin, and we don't want that. So second thing we do is we check security group membership, educated users, and then we just log requests in SharePoint list. Uneducated users get an adaptive card with links for training session and test. If the user passes, we add to educated users and log the request. If the user does not pass the test, we end this process. What we need for this adaptive card with a link for the training session is a form and a flow and Outlook event, and we need to update these events with the additional users. What we need as well is we need to have a quiz in Microsoft Forms and flow which processes these answers to a SharePoint list and let the list calculate if the user is now educated or not. So this is what we talked about as well. So, and this is our overview about this piece, our break number 2. So we talked a little bit about adaptive cards. So what is an adaptive card? So an adaptive card is just a design schema, and it's creatable in a visual editor called Adaptive Cards Designer. And this Adaptive Cards Designer is really almost no code, which means you just drag and drop, and the designer will auto-generate JSON code for you. So I call myself a maker, so I'm not really writing code, but I was able to do that as well. And if you like to do that too, you just go on adaptivecards.io/designer, and if you do so, you can just select your host app, and happens to be that I work a lot in Teams, perhaps Teams Lite, or if you're a nerd, just select Teams Dark. And now you can define your elements right here. You do this in this visual editor at the top, and beneath that, the code will be generated for you, and you just copy paste this into an action in Power Automate, which is called post your own adaptive card as a bot to a channel or to a user, which I used in my case. So it's just clicky clacky, and after that it's copy paste. So seriously, everyone can do that. Okay, once we have covered these adaptive cards, what do we need to do for our Teams provisioning flow? So we now have a list in SharePoint with Teams requests, and we already ensured that the owners are digitally literate. So from an IT perspective, we could grant them access to be an owner of a team. What we now need to do is we need to provision the team. And at first I thought, how hard can this be to do this in Power Automate? Just create a new team. But turns out there is no action in Power Automate to create a new team. So what I did then was just like, I called Microsoft Graph. Microsoft Graph is able to provision a new team. What we need to do to achieve that is we need to register an application in Error ID to authenticate. This means we have some basics, just like the name, and we need to save the tenant ID and the app ID. So these are 2 values that we desperately need, because otherwise this won't work in Power Automate. Next thing is we need to authenticate, which this means we need to grant some API permissions. So if I want to do stuff with Graph, I need to have permission for that. And we do this in Azure AD as well. And we need to grant admin consent as well. And then there is a second thing. Oh, this was too fast. There is an app secret. So an app secret is just like an additional layer of security, and you can only see this one time in your life. So you create this and please save it. And caution, it will expire the day you want to demo this. So this really happened when I did that before. So please keep track of that. What we now do is we get the manager of our desired owner, and then we get an approval from this manager. And this means if the approval outcome is yes, it's approved, then we create the group, we get the group ID, we upgrade the group to a team, we add the desired channels if they were provided, we update the request log list in SharePoint to tell, hey, this is first approved, and then it's created, and we send beautiful notifications to our users. And if the business manager says, nope, this is not a good idea, so we don't need actually a team, then we just send a notification and end this process. Okay, let's see how this goes. You can see it's here. I'm on flow.microsoft.com. Go to my flows. I have some beautiful demo flows, and perhaps it's this one here, demo Teams provisioning. So we say when an item is created, so the first row locks the items in our SharePoint list, and then we say, hey, we have some variables for the tenant ID and the app ID and the app secret, and of course I won't show you this now, so I could put this in an Azure Vault as well, which would be best practice, but for a minimal viable product I can just hard code it here, and we initialize some variables after that, of course, and then we set the privacy level, which we got from the user's input, and now we get the manager. So there is nice action in Flow just to get the manager, which comes from our Azure AD. So if your Azure ID is kind of a mess, this won't work as well. So now we create an approval, which is an adaptive card as well. So manager of my user gets an adaptive card and now can approve or decline this request. And depending on this outcome, several actions will follow. So if it's not approved, so if the outcome is not equal to approve, we just end this request and send a few notifications. If the outcome is equal to approve, I want to create a group. So this is how it works. We use method post. Our URI is grabbed at Microsoft.com, and I used better for some groups. And now we just put into our JSON snippet the description, display name, mail nickname, and so on. So whatever we needed to have, and you can just copy paste this JSON snippet from docs.microsoft.com. So it's not that that hard. After that, we need to parse this JSON. We need to create a team, so I use the method put. Put always means there is already something, and now I want to upgrade this, so I want to add a new information to that. So we already have an Office 365 group, which is the foundation of a team, and now I just say, hey, I want a team on top of this Office 365 group, and I have some settings, just like fun settings, Giphy content rating is moderate, or allow users to edit and delete their own messages. I set these values to true because it's best practice that you are just able to edit your own stupid typos. But you can choose other values as well. Then I make another call to add this desired channel. So I chose display name first channel and description. So this could be a user input as well. And once we have that, we just update our list. And our list is now, the status is created because we already created a team, and this doesn't take a lot of time, but we will for sure take our time to notify our owner which requested this team, just to keep him or her updated. Okay, so let's see what we need to do next. We need to build our building break number 4. We need to add our bot as an app to Teams. So when I first did that, I was like, oh my God, so I'm not a developer. How can I do that? But it turns out that it's quite easy if you follow a nice tutorial. So in my Power Virtual Agent, you saw that I have my topics, and here I'm in my authoring canvas, and this is all very, very nice. And the first thing I need to do is I need to publish my bot at least once. So if it's not published, you can't use it elsewhere than just like in this blade here. And once we published it, we can choose channels in which this bot needs to work or should work. And we can do this in a website. We can do this in an app. We could even do this in Slack, but I wanted to do this in Teams, of course. And if we do so, if we choose Teams, there will be an app ID created for us. And the only job that you have is copy paste that. So just copy this to your clipboard, and there is also a button for that. And once you have this, the only job you have is go to App Studio in Microsoft Teams, which is a lightweight developer tool, and copy paste this app ID and provide a name and a description for your bot. And once you did that, you can easily add this app to your app catalog, and then it appears on the left rail. So let's see how this goes. We choose the channel. There is a manifest editor. So the only thing you need to know, token.botframework.com is the only valid domain that you need to provide. And the hardest part was seriously come up with a description and name, because you are not allowed to use Teams or Office 365 or Microsoft or any product names by Microsoft, and the short description needs to be shorter than the long description. And so this really took me like an hour to do that. All the other stuff was just like a couple of minutes, but this was the hardest part, as hilarious as this sounds. Okay, so I first thought that I could just install this app, but it turned out that I needed to download it as a package. So I got a zip file and then upload this zip file again. Don't know if they fixed this issue by now, but this at least is my experience from 10 days ago. Okay, so how do we do this? What are we going to do? I would say, instead of trying to take over the world, let's see how this works to make this chatbot just seriously unpeep our user experience. And of course, I pre-recorded this for some reason. So this is our user chatting with our chatbot. The chatbot is replying, hey, is this what you want? Do you want to be the owner of a new team? And who should be the owner? What should be the name of the team? Please give me a description and a privacy level, and please provide me with some email addresses for a first, second, or third member. So we ask all the questions that we need to have so that we can actually make a cool graph call. What you see now is our user needs to be invited for training sessions, and he just provides his email address and chooses a training session which he or she wants to attend. So in my case, I chose James Bond to be my owner, and of course James Bond chooses a nice session. And once he did that, he attends the training. We don't cover this in this video that James Bond is attending my training, but perhaps this would be a nice idea for another session. And we ask some questions. So first question is, why do we want to test you? Of course, the correct answer is, with great power comes great responsibility, to quote Uncle Ben. Which roles do we have in team? So I just chose some sample test questions in a real world scenario. This would be a little bit more advanced, but I think you get what I'm up to. So you can see here the user input, and what we do now is the Power Virtual Agents flow picks up the information that the user did in Power Virtual Agent. So we have, as I told you, the team name and the owner and the description. So everything that user was asked by the Power Virtual Agent, and now we have this in this flow. And it turns out that it's not that hard to do that. So we just need to wait a little bit, and now you see exactly group membership is checked, and we have an item in our SharePoint list. So speaking of our SharePoint list, this locks the team's requests. Here we go. And now when an item is created, we run an approval workflow. And the approval workflow just asks the manager, hey, Anne, and Anne is the Unikitty here. Anne is the manager of James, and Anne just needs to approve or can reject this Teams request. And she has all the information in place, and she doesn't need to leave her working context because everything takes place in Microsoft Teams. And this is how our fancy adaptive card looks like from the approval. So this is provided already by Microsoft. You do not need to do anything to do that. It's just like the action of creating and waiting for approval. Again, once we did that, so she approves. She doesn't submit any comments because it's okay. What we now do is, after manager's approval, the flow provisions the team automatically. And we just send a few notifications afterwards. And here is what we have in our SharePoint list. So I have my title, demo, let's code more power. This is my team. I have a description, my owner, a privacy level. The status now is created. I have a first channel, the members, everything is in my list. So I also have a nice list in IT, which gives me an overview about all the teams and the pending requests as well, which is a nice thing. Okay, so back to James Bond. So James Bond is the owner, and James Bond got two fancy adaptive cards. The first one was, hey, your team's request about your desired team, less code, more power. Great, you did the training and showed us that you know your stuff. Congratulations, we will now pass your request to your manager for final approval. And once the approval is done, our owner gets another adaptive card which says, hey, time for a happy dance. Your team was approved by your manager and we already created it for you. So because manager's approval and the creation of teams, this just takes literally 2 or 3 seconds if we do this in Graph. And this means that it's we can just do this in one message because otherwise we will send too many messages to our users. Okay, so now that we have that, we can see this is our team and the new channel is also there. So this is just gorgeous. So why did we do that? Because with great power comes great responsibility. So instead of just saying, hey, you're not educated enough to be a Teams owner, we don't stop there. We educate our users and then we test our users. So it's very, very crucial to do that. What is the result? The result is a balance between governance and user-centric service adoption. Another result is an easy, maintainable solution for IT and a very, very lean process for the business to request common asks. So perhaps, yes, we could start with requests for new teams, as this is very common nowadays. But please don't stop there. Please make a list. What do they ask? What should we just automate? Because busy, again, ain't productive. We do not need to stay busy to satisfy our users. The more specific impact on IT is we have a more productive internal client support. And we can just imagine a very, very fast adoption of this service because the process is very, very clearly described. And because we send all those notifications, which happens to be adaptive cards and work in the right context, users will adopt that as well. We will reduce costs just because let machines do what machines are good at, automate everything which can be automated, and where really the uniqueness of a human being is needed for solving complex issues, let humans do that. And then we have a chance. We have the great chance to narrow the historical gap between business and IT. So I don't have an IT background. I have a business background. And I'm very often confronted, or I see very often that IT and business are just like fighting siblings. So this is not best practice, but it kind of it is like that in most organizations. So IT pointing to business, they are so uneducated. These are so dumbest assumable users. And business pointing to IT, they are just the guardians of the status quo. They don't allow me anything. And we need to narrow this very historical gap. Impact on the business. Wow, I mean, it's an easy, understandable process. And we finally have a human touch and feel of an interactive interface. I mean, I don't want to fill out the 7 pages paper form. And I don't want to fill out a digital form as well. And I don't want to get signatures from my manager and wait 3 weeks for that. And I don't want to let it depend on goodwill if I'm allowed to be the owner of a team or not, if my company works with Office 365, which is common these days. I really want to be treated good. And this means immediately response. This means I need to be very clear, where are we in this process? And this overall leads to an improved user satisfaction. And I get the idea, hey, my IT department is providing me with cool stuff, which is nice as well. Of course, Power Virtual Agents as part of the Power Platform comes with additional licensing. And I prepared a slide for you to show you everything that I know about licensing. It is as easy as that. So if you now need to chuckle, I know how old you are. Microsoft provided us with a gorgeous licensing guide. It's about 48 pages. You will need to read all of them to understand what is in and what not. And I will provide you with a link for that, of course, as well. But I'm not a licensing guru, and I think we should all normalize if we don't know enough about something to just admit it. So please read this licensing guide. So it really depends what you need, but it's a great thing. Okay, now that we have that, I would like to say thank you for being my audience at this conference, ComService 2020, which happens to be a great virtual experience. I would love to encourage you to learn more. So first of all, read the fabulous manuals. So please, Microsoft.com should be your go-to resource. Join an app in a day or a Power Virtual Agent in a day workshop, which happen to be nowadays online. Start to create your own adaptive cards on adaptivecards.io/designer. And if you're keen on learning, please connect with me on Twitter at Luise Freese, so I can help you there as well. And now I would love to learn what your questions are. I'm very curious. Thank you.
Thank you, Louise. Louise?
Yes.
Sorry, I'm sorry. I'm unable to pronounce your name correct, but that was a really interesting session. I think I got some good tips. I think the certifying teams owners, that is definitely a good idea.
I think so as well. So in my opinion, there happens a lot in the Microsoft Teams. We know all the services that get provisioned by Microsoft when we click create a new team. And I think it's just a good idea to educate users before we give them such a great power. So because Uncle Ben.
Yeah, definitely. So there are no questions asked in the Q&A, but if you want, you can move over to the breakout room to have some after session networking and discussions. And everyone can ask Louise what they want to know more about. And you can maybe link some of the awesome guides, and definitely that licensing guide. I really like that one.
Yeah, I will put the link. Yeah, because licensing is next to godliness. So at least on my experience.
Yes, not far from it. All right, we will end this session, and you can go over to the breakout session. Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye.